Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and a very special welcome to Joelle Kaufman from GTM Flow, all the way from San Francisco, talking on a cool Monday afternoon. How are you, Joelle?
I'm very well, Darren. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. We're just talking before the fires and all the stuff that's happening in LA, and we're talking about how it also happens in Australia and the devastation that's happening. But out of that, there'll be lots of great stories of adversity being overcome and resilience and so forth. How's the state of the nation, if you like, there? Because there's two things that have happened. Because as we're speaking, the 47th president has just been inaugurated. What's the real feeling on the ground, Joelle?
I don't know that I can tell you what everybody feels. And I think that people are less agitated than they were when he was first elected.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to a wonderful podcast with Mike Walls, who is the incoming national security advisor. And one of the things he pointed out, as did a HR McMaster, he was the national security advisor at the start of 45 term. He said in 8 years ago, Trump didn't expect to be elected. So they were completely they didn't know what to do. They were kind of disorganized. Chaos reigned.
Yeah.
Right. And it was evident to everybody that chaos was reigning for maybe the whole time, but definitely in the beginning. Because, this is a fairly influential country and big economy. And, I often tell CEOs or CROs or CMOs that when they speak, they're never speaking freely because people are listening to them as their role. Well, same thing magnified by 2000 for the president of the United States. What McAllister said in the podcast was this time he did expect to win.
Yeah.
And they did live through the 4 years. So they're actually very organized and planned. And, that sense of it's not total chaos. You may not agree with his policies. He's signing a bunch of executive orders and people may hate them. People hated Biden's, people hated Trump 1, people hated Obama's. Like, this is wonderful thing about being a democracy and a free press.
Yeah.
Is we're allowed to say, I fundamentally hate that you're doing that. Right? That's okay. We should have the debate. The answer to speech that you don't like, policies that you don't like, is to speak and to vote. So I think there's people that are nervous, there's people that are excited, there's people that are sitting back and wondering, okay, how's this going to go? Which is kind of how it should be when any new leader takes over, particularly the leader of a country that is so influential in world affairs.
It's interesting you say that because a podcast that I've listened to for many years, a guy called Sam Crowley, he always talks about the fact that, you focus on what you've got control over, you focus on what you can influence, and irrespective of who is the president, who runs the state government, nothing has actually impacted his ability to add value, drive revenue, etc., etc. So focus on what you've got to focus on, and you know what? Just you don't have to agree, you don't have to like it, but just understand, what can I do about it? Well, if I can't do anything about it, then focus on what I can do something about.
I think that's right. And we have to understand that the press is in the business of making us as anxious as possible.
Yes.
And so if we accept that the press is in the business of getting attention and things are going to be fine, does not sell impressions.
No.
So we have to be intelligent consumers of information. we have to be clear on what impacts me, what can I control?
Mm,
And I think it's okay to be activated. If you feel very strongly about certain issues, you absolutely
mm,
should be advocating and donating. And if you want to march, march. I mean, these are the privileges of being in a democracy. What isn't a privilege of being in a democracy is getting what you want. That's not what it means.
which is got some good themes in there around leadership because we're going to talk about leadership, particularly sales leadership today. So you've had a pretty long and distinguished career in sales leadership. I think what I read was over $4 billion in revenue generated,
Market cap,
market
market,
capitalization. Um,
which is not the same. I just want to
yeah,
be
no, that's
honest.
fine. You're also did I get this right? A rock and roll singer.
I am. I front a rock and roll band.
Wow. And are we talking rock and roll from the 70s, 80s, or we got modern rock? What are we talking
We
there?
do it all. Mostly we do like my favorite set of ours is we call it Pink and Pat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Pat Benatar, which is very solid 80s, great rock and roll, and Pink, which
Yep.
is, now. And interesting, both women, both artists, have similar vocal ranges. Pat's a little bit higher, but Pink has an incredible voice. And I can do both of them. I can't
Nice.
go as high as Pat, but neither can Pat anymore. So I think that's okay. Um, and they're really fun. So it's fun to mash that up. It's been a lot of fun when we have a mixed age crowd.
Yes.
There's songs like one of my new favorites is All Fired Up by Pat Benatar. It's just a great kind of lift
Mm.
you up, get you going song.
Yeah.
And A Million Dreams from Pink,
Yeah.
right? Which is also a lift you up. Different, one is about hope and one is about action, but it's exciting. So we do that, but we also do Journey or AC/DC or Led Zeppelin. And it's so funny because people will come up to me and say, "You can do Journey? Like Steve Perry's really hard." And yes, if you're male, but I'm female. So I'm not singing baritones or bass, but a
Yeah.
tenor, sure.
You got it covered.
That's all right.
That's awesome. And with the thing, I couldn't not ask you this. Do you get involved in some of the swinging acts that she does from stage? Have you got
Personally, I
like a
like
trapeze?
bells. Let's go with the big bell. That's
Ah,
my favorite
okay.
CDC. No, my it's funny because yeah, every so often you end up at a karaoke bar,
Yeah.
right? And one of my go-tos is You Shook Me.
Yeah.
And they announce it and everyone's like,
Here we
because
go.
well, and it can sound terrible, right? Like he's again, these are hard voices
Mm,
to sing. And I just kind of smile at people or wink. I'm like, I got it. And then, by the middle of the song, people are on their feet going crazy
yeah.
because it's fun. It's a fun song. Everybody
Yeah.
knows it.
Yeah.
And when it's done with attitude and in key, you're like, oh, that's fun. So, yes, I sing a rock and roll band. I even, when we launched Bloomreach, part of our launch event was we had a band karaoke thing going on. So you had a live band, but you could sing with them.
Okay.
And it was for our customers, our guests, whatever. And it was great fun. Everyone had a good time. And after all the customers and partners and prospects left, it was just us and the company celebrating that we'd come out of stealth, right? And I walk up onto the stage, take a microphone, and I don't know which song I did, but it's one of them that I probably named. Watching the engineers who knew me as the head of
Yes.
marketing, I'm an executive, right?
That's right.
And I'm not drunk.
Yeah.
I'm stone cold sober because I'm the MC of this
Yeah.
hoedown. And so I went up, did it. I will always love the look on their faces where they're like,
What?
because we have this concept that a leader we elevate these we elevate them. We expect a fairly rigid and
Mm.
narrow model of behavior. And some of that's valid, but a
Yeah.
lot of that actually undermines psychological safety and undermines our ability to perform as a
Mm.
team.
Because often we look at people and we're kind of pigeonhole them or stereotype them based on the role and the position they're holding, and therefore we expect them to behave in a certain way. So it's almost like a bit of a pattern interrupt to say, "What? Joelle's a rock and roll singer? Hang on,
Right.
does she live an alternative life? Is she deep, deep, deep undercover here as an executive?"
How is that possible? Well, and then, when we did at Dynamic Signal our first customer event and we were planning it, and someone said, well, who's going to MC it? And I looked at them and I said, seriously? And they're like, oh, right. It's gonna
Come
be you.
on.
Like, uh-huh, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
Because I'm comfortable with a microphone.
yeah.
So away we go. I think that we have to embrace that we bring our whole selves to work.
Mm,
And I think there are some boundaries as a leader. You can't, there's certain jokes you cannot make.
of course.
And you have to be much more thoughtful
Mm,
about what you say and when, because it has a ripple effect,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But you still have to be human.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You asked me about my book that's coming out, the Crushing the Cancer Curveball. And, I have a genetic high risk for cancer. I'm the 12th person in my family to face cancer, or the
Mm,
12th diagnosis. There's
yeah.
actually six just among three of us. Anyhow, um, I used to tell everybody tomorrow is my half year, I don't have cancer day. And people look at me and say, excuse me? Like, well, tomorrow I have a bunch of screening.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, I will know definitively that today I don't have cancer. And
yeah.
that's a very good day.
Yes.
And they kind of look at me and then they're like, huh. I said, we all have stuff, people.
Mm,
And this is my stuff. I'm not looking for sympathy support. I'm actually telling you I'll be offline for a few
mm,
hours because you can't actually work while doing that.
yeah,
But that's what's going on for me. And if I'm a little distracted tomorrow, that's what's going on for me.
yeah, yeah.
And I want you to know it because I'm human. And by the way, if something's going on for you, I hope you'll be just as comfortable sharing it so that we can support you if you're a little distracted by
Mm,
something.
yeah. And it could be anything. And that's the thing about leadership is, you've got to understand the environment. You've got to understand what's appropriate to say and not say in that environment. But what do people want from their leaders? They want authenticity. They want to know that I've got a human being who has the same feelings, the same approaches, that is not going to hide anything. It's not going to pretend to be somebody who they're not. It's not going to put on the super Wonder Woman cape and think, you know what, I'm indestructible because I am the leader. You just want to know that, hey, this person's a human being just like everybody else. They just have more responsibility potentially at this particular time, and that resonates with a lot of people, and it makes the environment that much more, I guess, vibrant, but authentic.
Well, and it makes teams understand each other
Mm,
and support each other, right? Because look, sometimes something goes wrong at work. Sometimes you screw up.
yeah,
Whether you're a leader, an individual contributor, a mid-level manager, you're human. And if you're not making mistakes, you're not taking risks, and then you're really of no use.
yeah,
So therefore, you're going to make mistakes.
totally.
And we want people to feel safe saying, I made a mistake. I need help. This isn't working. Can somebody give me some ideas or
Mm,
help me out? I used to say to my teams, like, look, make all the mistakes you can.
mm,
Try to make them off good hypotheses. Don't try to make a mistake. But if you make a mistake, all I ask is try not to make the same mistake
yeah,
over and over, because then you're not learning.
yeah,
And matter of fact, if you make a mistake, could you please share it with everybody
mm,
so everyone can learn and perhaps not make that mistake?
yeah,
Right? It's a very different approach. And especially in the world of sales, where we're all trying to prove that we're invincible and we can do amazing things and win the deal. And you want to say, like, yeah, sometimes that pitch is going to fall flat. We should talk about it. Sometimes you're negotiating a deal and it goes flying off the rails.
Yeah.
Sometimes they ghost you. Like, how has this deal been right? How has this deal been going so well and then went completely radio silent? And all of that's normal. Like
Yeah.
that happens.
Yeah.
There is no sales leader, no CEO who hasn't lived through all of those
Mm,
because they happen all the time.
they do.
But if we don't talk about it, I feel like I'm the schmuck.
And particularly if you're operating in an environment, Joelle, where uh, it's almost like walking on eggshells, where your sales leader or your chief revenue officer perhaps doesn't have, I guess, the emotionally intelligence to uh, ask for feedback. What did you learn from that mistake? You being ghosted. Oh, well done. Congratulations. Welcome to the club. Often salespeople can, and sometimes sales leaders can walk around trying to avoid that because I think it's going to be looked upon as being a negative and you've been a quote unquote failure versus senior leaders and sales leaders who can say, hey, failure, mistakes, not getting things right is just a part of the game that we all go through. And until you go through it, you haven't really lived the sales leadership game. So
That's
when
right.
you go through it, experience it, embrace it, understand what are the lessons, and as you rightly say, try not to repeat it, but think about, okay, what did I learn here? What can I apply next time to hopefully either minimize the risk of this happening again? You may not necessarily remove it, but what can I learn and how can I pay that lesson forward to others who are coming through as well?
Right. And what gets in our way is fear,
Mm.
right? Am I not going to make my number? Am I going
Yeah,
to get fired?
yeah,
Am I going to lose my patch, lose this deal I've been working on, in
yeah.
some reorg? And fear is real. Um, as sales leaders, we don't want people making choices based on fear. We want fear to be a signal, a warning
Mm.
sign, pay
Yeah.
attention.
Mm.
So one of the things I did early when I took over as CRO at a company, I said, I really want everyone to understand their pipeline math. And particularly, I want them to be honest about,
Mm.
do you have sufficient late stage pipeline to cover the inevitability of setbacks and problems?
Yeah,
Because, if you had a 30% win rate, you're world class.
yeah.
It's fantastic. Okay. That means if you don't have 3x coverage, you're treating every deal as if it's precious. Well,
Mm.
some number of those deals, something's going to happen that's outside of your control.
Totally.
So, I also, as a sales leader, I loved RevOps. I always love RevOps. And I love the data, but you got to use the data right. And
Yeah,
so one of my tells was, we're looking at the forecast and people are calling their commits. And I do another RevOps analysis on the commits. I want to see commits that haven't communicated with us in 2 weeks
yeah.
because I'm really curious why we're so confident.
Mm.
My sense of deals is when they're doing a deal, there's communication. And when they start to move sideways, they get quiet.
That's where ghosting starts.
Exactly. Like people don't want to tell you, Darren, I'm so sorry. There's been a change. We don't want to do the deal because you're going to be upset.
Yeah,
And we don't want to upset people.
that's
So
right.
we mostly choose to avoid the conversation and hope you forget about us.
Yeah. Oh, what was that deal? Oh yeah, it was there was a multi-million dollar deal. Oh yeah. No.
Right.
So
Exactly.
because I want to talk about some elements of leadership and responsibilities of a leader in 2025 and beyond. For the listeners, can you just give us a bit of background? Because you mentioned you're a CRO, you've built companies, you've been involved in Silicon Valley, you're a rock and roll singer, you're an athlete, amongst other things, and most importantly, according to your profile, mother of three, which is probably one of the most important responsibilities, which is awesome. because I always love to get from the guests background that led them to do what they do today. So you're now a strategy and revenue catalyst.
Yeah.
It's almost like an alchemist.
Kind of.
Um, I'm always curious, was there something in your career or the latter stages of your career before you jumped into GTM Flow that said, "Hey, we need to help in a wider community, wider audience." Um, so love to know what was the catalyst and a little bit of the background that led to it.
Sure. So a lot of things in my career were kind of accidental. I got my first marketing leadership role having never worked in marketing, but I had been in product and I had done biz dev and I'd done sales management. And that was actually a great background to be a head
Hmm.
of marketing because I had a business orientation rather than a functional one.
Right.
In fact, I recommend to people in their careers get out of your function, go
Hmm.
work in other functions if what you want to be is a senior executive,
Yeah.
because the senior executive has to put the business first.
Mm.
I've been involved with a number of companies, and my pattern was often stay at a company for 3 to 5 years, be somewhere for 6 months, 3 to 5 years. Um, so it turns out I was a bad chooser of the first opportunity after I left something that I'd been with for 3 to 5 years. What I started to see was I had developed, because I wasn't a natural at it, a very intentional way to lead.
Hmm.
I was explicit about it. I worked at it. I feel that leading people is actually a job. And in fact, in the alchemy that you talked about, it is the catalyst,
Yeah.
right? Can you align and motivate other people to move in a common direction?
Mm.
And can you adjust when you get feedback from the market or people and
Mm.
have to shift that direction? That is leadership. It is a intensely psychological communication and strategic role. And what we do is we spend a lot of time going from crisis to crisis,
Mm.
which makes us what I call a tactical hero.
Yeah.
You can't think when you're going crisis to crisis. You're in a heightened mode. Um, that's not what we want from leaders.
Uh,
So we have to learn how to shift. And what I saw was people who had worked for me were reaching out and asking me for some of the resources I had built. And they were using the tools and the approach as they worked in other companies like Google or
hmm.
Facebook.
Hmm.
And while that was very flattering, I said, I get pretty animated and excited about creating legions of legendary leaders. Like, I love the idea that this concept of I created called the first day memo. It's a
Hmm.
ridiculous thing, right? It's literally a memo you get on your first day. But here's the trick about it. It's anywhere from 4 to 11 pages long. All of the background you need about the company is linked to it
Hmm.
with tasks for you to do for your learning,
Hmm.
all of the administrative stuff you need, and then all of your initial projects with all the people you need to work with
Hmm.
is in the memo. And all those people have already read it and edited and given comments. So you show up with a roadmap for your first 30 days.
Mm.
And everyone else knows what your roadmap is. So when you come knock, 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 slack, 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 whatever it is,
Yeah.
people are expecting you, right? The onboarding speed is tremendous. The ability to know if you were a good fit is unmatched.
Mm.
And your ability to contribute to the organization is just fast and furious.
Mm.
Well, people have taken that, they use it all over the place, but they've said, oh, I'm going on leave for some reason. I'm going to write a first day memo for my leave. I'm going to do job share. I'm going to use this same thing. The process of writing it down and collaborating, getting feedback, so that everyone is aligned, because the first
Mm.
job of a leader is alignment towards a common objective.
Yeah.
Well, from hiring you, even if you're a sales guy, like, what do you need to know? What's your patch? How are you supposed to learn about our product, about our customers, about our market? How do you
Yeah.
learn all the mistakes that happen before you happen to show up?
Yeah.
Because I'd really like to push them into your brain if I could. So we do. So that was really when I saw all these people using tools like that and others, I said, I think what I want to spend the next part of my professional life on is spreading that
Yeah.
to as many leaders as possible, because leaders are the magical leverage point of every organization. If your leaders are good, if they are
Mm.
aligned with each other and they align their teams, your organization can deal with any curveball.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that. As you were talking about the first day memo, I'm thinking, wouldn't that it's and without minimizing this, it sounds so logical, and yet I don't know any organization, certainly organizations that I've gone into, that existed, because you go there day one, you're lucky if you have a pass that works. Most cases you don't have a laptop that's been set up. So the first couple of days is getting to meet people. But if you had that already pre-prepared, it gives you a really a much better opportunity of having a faster start, and you get access to that maybe before day one. You're already
Mm-hmm.
pre-educated, and you can hit the ground running.
So one of the legendary leaders I had a part of shaping his career worked for me at multiple companies. And as he came into one of the second company, he said to me, he said, "Can I get my first day memo a week in advance, please?" And I mean, that made more work for me, but I'm like, you know what? Absolutely, we will get
Yeah.
it done. And I don't micromanage, because I think people are capable of tremendous creativity, and
Mm.
they need to have autonomy to do that. So clarity of the goal, autonomy in how we reach it,
Yeah.
perfect. I don't give autonomy on writing a first day memo. If you can't write a first day memo, I won't approve the hire.
Hmm.
And the reason is it is so good for the team,
Yeah.
right? It's so good for you, yes, but it is so good for the team. My son plays baseball. I don't know if baseball is big in Australia. I know
Yeah.
you play
Pretty
cricket.
much.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in baseball, if everybody tries to play shortstop, you're going to lose the game. If people are fighting over who gets to play shortstop, you're going to lose the game. It is not the shortstop's job to tell everybody I'm the shortstop.
No.
It's the manager's job. And so I am very clear at this moment in time, these are the projects, this is the team.
Mm.
We also tell people, I told people, and now people who use it do this. Nobody has ever, and I've been doing first day memos since 2000.
Hmm.
There are thousands of these that I have seen and crossed my desk. Nobody has ever finished one, because they are a snapshot.
Yeah.
And within the first 2 to 4 weeks, something will happen, and it will change the priorities of what's in the memo. And
Mm.
that's good.
Mm. It is. And that's probably the curveball you kind of referred to, because but the preparation part, and if you think about it, you're bringing in somebody, either an individual contributor, a senior leader, a sales leader. You want to give them every opportunity of making a fast start and integrating as quickly as possible into the organization. So setting them up for success is a really important thing. But as you rightly say, it's not going to be 100% complete, because there will be things that happen, because an organization is a living, breathing organism, and things change because we're dealing with human beings. But as you were talking, what I get in terms of first day memo is it should give a leader coming in a couple of things. One is a higher level of certainty that people have thought and considered the environment to help educate that person to make their integration as seamless as possible, as quick as possible. But it also should give them confidence that they're part of an organization that is actually thinking about what is needed, and it's not just an individual thing. Just so, because there are so many leaders that come into organizations, Joelle, and you would have seen this, that they're literally thrown to the wolves. There's your desk. There's your office. Here's your pass. Over there, there's your team. Good luck. Let me know if there's anything I can help you with.
So one of the things I did when I joined companies as the chief marketing officer or the chief revenue officer or whatever, my next boss was the CEO. I wrote the first day memo for the CEO and I'd send it to them in advance. And it was a different kind of memo. It was often, these are the questions. These are the things I need to know to do my job. Please fill in who I should be meeting with. Please
Mm-hmm.
share this with them because I'm going to onboard with intensity and with focus.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm off base, if I'm pointing at the wrong things, please redirect me.
Yeah.
And let's do that the easy way. I'll put it all on paper or a Google Doc,
Mm-hmm.
and you can poke at it. Everyone can poke at it.
Mm.
And if there's anything I should know, for example, I love that we live in an era where sales calls are often recorded.
Yeah.
No sales leader can listen to them all. So if we have a best hits or, you know, these are the key ones to listen to, the key times to listen when we talk about how we differentiate or how we position or how we discuss our pricing or how we deal with disappointment.
Mm.
I want to hear it. I want to read it in a transcript, but I want to hear it. Please curate that.
Mm.
And if you aren't curating it, well, let's talk to the sales enablement person if that person exists.
Yeah.
If not, can we hire a contract sales enablement person to dig that stuff up? I was talking with a client last month and we were talking about customer centered marketing. And I actually think it's customer centered strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I did, I work with multiple people at this client, is I had reached out to a different one and I said, give me 3 stories of customers whose careers were impacted by this company's technology. It took him 30 seconds. He's like, this one, this one, this one. I said, great. I got the stories, but it was probably an under 2-minute exchange.
Yeah.
During my workshop, I started with that. And I started with one of them. And I asked the question to this large marketing organization, how many of you know that story?
Mm.
0.
Wow.
And I said, how long do you think it took me to get that story? And they're kind of all bouncing around. And when I told them that it was under 2 minutes, they said, but we keep asking for customers we can profile and customers we can case study. I said, yeah, that's not the right question. The question is, what customers have we impacted their careers?
Mm.
And just look to understand that because that customer took a risk on us, made it successful, has seen benefit for it. That's a customer I want to talk to.
Mm.
I want to understand them. I want to figure out what is their particular role and mentality and what was the urgency
Mm.
drove them to do it because then they do it over and over again. Wonderful
Absolutely.
thing. And that becomes how we can orient our whole go to market.
Mm.
Right now, if you don't have any customers, that's harder. There's a different I mean, look, I did startup, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes starting at 0 and it's hard.
Yeah.
There's a really great book called The Mom Test where there's a way to talk to people about how do you do this? How do you do that?
Yeah.
Rather than do you like my this? Because the
Mm.
answer to do you like my this is always yes.
Yes.
Your mom never tells you that your art sucks. So if you have customers, look at whose career is impacted. If you
Mm.
don't have customers, ask them how they're doing solving the problem that you think you want to solve. If their solution's good and working for them, find a different problem. But if
Mm.
you can understand what's wrong with how they're solving the problem, what's causing them pain, and that this is a problem that's in their top 3.
Mm.
Because if it ain't in the top 3,
It's not going to get prioritization.
right, find something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
So um, that's the kind of things that come out of a first day memo because you
Mm.
can ask those questions. I can say, who are the customers who?
Yeah.
Why did these buy? Why did they not? And I
Yeah.
can guide my incoming sales leader. What questions do you have?
Mm.
Or here are the things you probably should ask. I know because I've been around here a while. Start here, but come back in 2 weeks with questions I haven't thought of.
Yeah.
Another thing I'll add, I tell everybody to create a list. And the list is you'll see things in the first month or two when you join an organization that will make you go, huh? Write them down.
Yeah.
Tell me about them because they might actually be, huh? Or there might be a reason, but we don't see them anymore because to us, they're normal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good, it's a really good approach. I like it. I like it. So I want to talk about, I want to talk about curveballs because what you've described there is a great, I guess, framework to minimize, for want of a better term, curveballs that come in and help people set up for successful integrations and certainly people coming into the organization. But I'm also thinking you could do this within an organization with lots of people as a reset, as a let's just bring everybody together to say, are we still on course? Are we still on par? Do we still have the right solutions and the right approach to market that we think we have?
Okay.
You've written a book and crushing the cancer curveball, but in that you talk about some unique perspectives on how to deal with, I guess, challenges when you least
Mhm.
expect it.
Yeah.
Um, Comfortable for you as how comfortable you are to share this in terms of your own journey, because the curveballs always are thrown at us, and I think personal health is one of the biggest curveballs that people need to deal with in their life. What are some of the key lessons that have come out of your experience that has led to the book, but specifically how that can be applied to the work that you do around leadership and sales? Because I think there's lots of lessons to come out of adversity because most people don't learn lessons out of everything being successful.
Nobody does. I mean, you think about a child learning to walk, they fall a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
That's how we figure out how to do it.
Mm.
So I want to make a correction, Darren.
Hmm.
I believe it is impossible to prevent curveballs. You don't get to choose the pitch.
Yeah,
You choose how you swing,
yeah,
you choose how you prepare, and the pitches come,
yeah.
right? And yes, you can do things to minimize the chaos, right? But you have people, you have circumstances, you have life,
Yeah.
they will come. So I think it's a very anxious place to say, I need to prevent the curveballs. And
Mm,
leaders that say, I need to prevent the curveballs, they're either going to fail or burn out,
mm,
probably both. Leaders who say, we're going to be a team that can handle curveballs, that's a powerful team.
yeah,
So, what are the lessons? The first thing with a curveball is to recognize it.
yeah.
Oh, that's not what we expected.
Ah, where'd that come from?
Right. Now, the first response to a curveball is, I don't want that. That's normal.
Mm,
Nobody cares because that's what you got. But okay. So once you say, like, oh, expletive curveball. And by the way, when my surgeon called me the day before my planned prophylactic bilateral mastectomy to tell me that the imaging showed I had a tumor,
yeah,
I let out a string of expletives worthy of a truck driver. All right. So that's okay. We don't have to be excited because a curveball is hurtling at us, but we
yes.
do need to see it. And then we need to put it in context and say, it's a curveball. It's just a curveball.
Mm,
So once we do that, then the next step is what's important. So you talked about aligning and realigning. The first
mm,
day memo tells somebody what's important. So when a curveball shows up, we should have a set of goals we're working towards. And we
mm,
can say, how does this curveball stack? Is it just urgent but not important, or is it actually important? Do
yeah.
we need to shift our goals because of it? So, and we can do that quickly, but we
Mm,
need to take that breath, say, oh, it's a curveball. Let me think about it in context of what's important, because I want to always focus on what's important.
yeah.
Number two step, By the way, in all of these steps, take a breath. Number two step, right? Number two step is, what are my strengths? What are the strengths on my team? When you're facing a curveball, that's not the time you're going to build a strength.
Yeah.
That's the time you're going to lean into it. You should be
Yeah.
building your strengths when everything's going normally. So continuously seeking to improve your talents and your ability as a salesperson, as a SDR, as a marketer, you should be investing in that, and your leaders should be investing in that all the time. When
Yeah.
you're facing a curveball, we're going to use them.
Mm.
So focus, strengths, mindset. So your first reaction, as mine was to my cancer, may be a string of expletives. But now the next second is like, okay, that's not going to serve me.
Yeah.
And I did this with my own cancer, right? Where I said, okay, that wasn't the answer I wanted. What's most important now is that I find an oncologist,
Yeah.
because my mindset shifted immediately to, what do I need to do to obliterate this thing?
Yeah.
In business, your mindset has to be, what can I do to crush this curveball?
Mm.
Now, sometimes, Darren, the answer is going to be, let it go by.
Yeah.
So you'll have customers who are angry, and sometimes they just need to yell at someone. You don't need to do anything. Let them yell at you.
Yes.
Let it go by.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times, you're going to have to play the ball. So your mindset is, what's the best hit I can get out of this ball?
Mm.
So I have my focus, I have my strengths, I have my mindset, I have resources, I may have cash, I may have relationships, I have things I can leverage. And all of this is happening very quickly, because the next and most important thing is, I've got to communicate.
Mm.
I've got to communicate so people can hear it. I want people to understand the size, scope, importance of the curveball. I want people to understand we can crush it. We have strengths, but I want to invite them to be part of figuring out what we should do.
Mm.
What are the questions we could ask? What are the possibilities we can explore here? And
Yeah.
we want everyone to be part of that conversation that we can. But I'm focused, like, we're headed towards this goal.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun about how people invest in what they help create.
Mm.
So we're facing the curveball. There may come a time where we need to do an after action report and say, so is there things we could have done before that might have led to the curveball not happening? You know, for example, in my cancer story, I could have had the bilateral mastectomy a year earlier. That might have avoided the cancer.
Yeah.
I didn't. Okay. I'm not really advocating that people with a high chance of breast cancer go do that. It's a very
Yeah.
personal choice.
Yeah.
But it was something I could have done.
Mm.
In business, when you have a client who is upset or is canceling or ghosting, were there signs earlier before we
Mm.
got to the crisis? But yes, we need to do that after we deal with what is. So
Yes.
put things in order,
Yeah.
crush your curveball, generate the ideas, try things. Now, in baseball, you get multiple swings.
Mm.
Turns out in business, you do as well. So try something with a sense of what would be a sign that it's working. And if it's not working, come together, assess, adapt, try something else.
Mm.
You may strike out. You're not out of the game. It was just a curveball,
Mm.
right? So though that's what I work with leaders on, is how to go through that process, how to train their team to go through that process. And
Yeah.
the hardest part of it, Darren, is that communication thing, because you're stressed, you're scared, you're concerned, and you need to communicate. And you want to communicate, it's important,
Yes.
but the entire inside of Australia is not on fire.
No. And the thing with that, and certainly the challenge for a leader will be, you'll have people within your team who may be feeling what you've been feeling, but multiplied by 5, 10, 15. So you might be really uncertain. You might be not knowing what's going to happen, but you can't. So I'd love to ask you this: how authentic does the leader need to be? Not painting a picture of everything's going to be rosy, because I believe that one of the key responsibilities of a leader is to identify and articulate current reality, but use that reality as a platform for progress, not as a reason why we're going to lose or why the world's going to implode. So, from a leadership point of view, how important is it for the leader to, I guess, balance reality with a sense of optimism that we can, through effort, through time, deal with this curveball?
So I think you just did it, right?
Okay.
So, right. I think that understanding how big a problem it is, right? It may be a problem for this quarter's commissions.
Mm,
It may be a problem for the hiring plan. It may be a problem, if you have a lot of curveballs, you have a lot of customers getting upset or canceling. We've seen out here in Silicon Valley, I'm sure you've seen it in Australia, uh, a lot of companies were overextended in solutions they were using.
mm,
And the last 3 years, you've seen people saying, I don't need that many seats. I don't have that many salespeople.
yeah.
So the downsells, or companies are consolidating. I don't need two of everything.
Mm,
So you see cancellations. And what we need to do is think about, how do we navigate through the time we have? Now, it could be that we have to adjust and our market is smaller, and that's unpleasant. And you can't tell people we may have to fire everyone, but we are looking for opportunities to either find a new market, expand within our existing customers,
yeah.
build more loyalty with our existing customers. What is the question you're going to pose that's something they can do?
Mm,
Like, people get very scared when they don't feel like they can have any agency in the matter.
mm,
And people are scared of being fired, and they may get fired. In fact,
mm.
I did a whole talk for I had just under 50 SDRs at Dynamic Signal. And one day I brought them all together, and my talk started with, "You will be fired. Not today, but you will be fired." And I think
Yeah.
it's important for people to depower that, because if you're going to be in sales leadership, you will be fired.
Mm.
It's maybe your fault, it may not be your fault, but it is a occupational hazard that you should count on. It
It's
just is.
Well, it's like we talk about all the professional coaches in Australia of sporting teams, right? And it's like this long-running joke that the only successful coaches are the ones that get out before they're fired.
Right. I mean, okay, so maybe you know when to jump ship, but at the end of the day, getting fired is unpleasant,
Mm,
um, and is not unusual.
mm,
And when you think about, you will probably be fired at some point. What next? Well,
yeah,
what have you done that you can share? What have you learned that you can bring to somebody else? And who are the people who will introduce you and
mm,
recommend you? And it really was a talk about invest in people,
yeah,
invest in skills, and invest in opportunities. Not because they're going to work out. Sometimes they don't. But when you invest in opportunities, people, and your own skill set, you've increased your value
yeah.
for the next one. None of us are going to work in the same place for the 50 years of our career.
That's
No
it.
one. So maybe you choose to leave. Maybe you get fired. I don't know. But investing in people, experiences, and taking risks
Yeah.
just is the right combination.
I love that, because what you're talking about is the security, for want of a better term, is not necessarily in the role. The security is in the individual in terms of what their capabilities are, what are they learning, what are they giving in terms of contribution, irrespective of the organization. And knowing that, you know what, there'll be some things that are going to be completely out of your control, which is a curveball, right? Company downsizes, they get bought out, whatever the case might be. There's an oversupply. You know what? You might be a fantastic person, but we don't need you anymore. And the people that can adapt to that and build resilience around that are the ones that ultimately will be, I guess, okay and put the right focus on what that actually means.
Well, and they can have a very rich, I had a very rich and rewarding career. I enjoyed it. Um, and it's funny, I'll have people call me and say, I got fired. Okay. I need to know how to talk about it. And I said, okay. And as they're talking, I usually have to pause and say, you know, you don't have to tell anybody that you were fired. You just tell them you left.
Yes.
And don't lie.
Yeah.
You don't have, we're not in a court of law where you're under testimony. Don't lie, because I think lies are a bad idea. I think you get
Yeah.
caught in lies. But you can frame it
Mm.
as, you're seeking a new opportunity and here's what you're looking for, and have an answer to that
Mm.
that makes sense. Because people get fired, people leave companies, companies go through changes. It's not a statement that you're good or bad.
Mm.
The statement of are you good or bad is what did you accomplish?
Yeah.
What did you learn?
Mm.
And who did you create
Mm.
as a fan?
Absolutely. Love it. So you talk in the work that you do around adaptability, resilience, and opportunities in adversity, and going through what you've gone through, and I guess going through, it's a perfect example of that. It leads
Mhm.
to I guess, really important responsibilities of a leader. So in the work that you do with organizations, from big organizations to startups, and you're working with leaders, whether it be CEOs, CMOs, CROs, sales leaders, what are some of the most important responsibilities that you feel, and maybe it's part of the first day memo concept as well, that you get them to focus on that gives them the best, I guess, start or the best opportunity to put their imprint in a respectful way on the organization?
So I think we need to separate that into two pieces:
Sure.
how you show up as a leader and what you do.
Yeah.
And they're slightly different.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do spend time on how you show up, which is how do you react to everything that's going on around you? And can you be intentional about it?
Yeah.
Can you be deliberate? Can you be aware of where you are playing out a script that you wrote when you were 5 and might not be the best script in your 40s?
Mm.
Right. So we do that. And we also focus on how you show up in the world of communication. How do you hear
Mm.
the other person and meet them where they're at? So those are how you show up. The other thing we work on is what do you do?
Mm.
So I had a conversation with someone who said, I know HR reaches out, we have to do goals. I put out goals, every quarter. And then I realized at the end of the quarter, I got to go score them. That is never what I did with goals, because my job as a leader is to align the team behind what's important, and they need to know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So they're part of setting the goals. We write them down. We talk about them in every meeting. We adjust. We're measuring progress to them.
Yeah.
These aren't about your performance for a performance review. This is about what are we trying to accomplish as a team for this business, and how do we know if we're doing it?
Mm.
And that's the job of the leader. Set Align to goals. You don't even have to set them. Make sure everyone is aligned to the same goals. Hire great people and put them in the roles where they can succeed.
Mm.
Give them the autonomy to do what they need to do, and hold everybody accountable through transparency and visibility.
Mm.
That's the job. How you show up to do that job.
Love it. And I'll add one thing that people need, and particularly leaders need to understand, that they are being watched like a hawk. And whether we like it or not, when we are being watched, we're also being judged. Because if we talk a good game and we say, this is how I'm going to show up, therefore, this is how I expect my team to show up. And if I'm also saying, this is what we're going to do, this is what I want you to do, we're going to be judged in terms of, are you the leader doing exactly the same thing, or you are just talking a good game? Because that's where your integrity comes into question.
Well, and if they're inconsistent,
Hmm.
this is where you brought up, I'm a parent of three. Now, my kids are now basically all adults. Children, they will parrot and mimic what you do, not
Yes.
what you say. We are all just big children.
Yeah.
So if you are leading and your actions and your behavior are inconsistent with how you say you want to be, what you're going to get is actions and behavior that mirror your actions and behavior.
That's it.
So if you're going to say these are our values, and I think you should, these are our values, no more than five. Our values are going to guide how we hire, how we promote, how we develop people, how we deal with curveballs. We're going to stay true to our values. You best stay true to your values
Hmm.
because
100%.
when you're off, the whole organization's like, nope.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, the company's a rocket ship and, it's just making money hand over fist. And that happens sometimes. It's
Hmm.
rare, but it happens. That can cover over. I mean, really, no one criticized Uber until everybody criticized Uber, right?
Yeah.
And then Uber had to make some changes
Yeah.
because their values and their leaders' behavior were wildly inconsistent.
Hmm.
Still a valuable company.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have been even more valuable. Don't
Yeah.
know.
Totally. Love that.
Yeah.
So love this conversation. As we bring this to a close, you mentioned, I think we mentioned before we press record that the book actually comes out 28th of January, next Tuesday. Um,
Yes.
Crushing the
Crushing
Cancer
the cancer
Curveball.
curve. Crushing the cancer curveball.
Brilliant. So for people looking into 2025, because we're sort of at the back end of January, can't believe it's 21st. Well, as I'm sitting here today, it's the 21st of January. It's the 20th where you are. Um, what's one thing that you are bullish about this year in relation to the work you're doing around all the go-to-market strategies and leadership, and specifically where can people get access to you in terms of connections and certainly to buy the book?
Okay. So I am bullish that we are changing the story. We're changing the story on cancer from one of panic and fear to one of power and confidence.
Hmm.
And that is a really exciting change. So, Crushing the Cancer Curveball is available on Amazon, and it is a playbook to show you, as either a person facing cancer or a person who loves someone facing cancer, how to find your power, how to
Yeah.
change the story, how to be a good partner with your medical team so that you can live through it the best way possible.
Hmm.
I also see a lot of hope in the world of commerce in business. There's been a big correction over the last couple of years. There's been this contraction with people buying less software, but I
Mm.
think it's happening with generative AI and the possibilities it's unlocking.
Mm.
Yes, there will be disruption. There has been disruption with every significant technological innovation of the last 150 years. We are not saddling horses to carriages anymore. And I think we're glad, but the guys who made saddles and horseshoes had to
Yes.
find something else to do, and they did. So I think we are at a moment where it is so much easier to learn new things. There are so many ways to learn new things. And I see an appetite
Mm.
for people learning and experimenting. And I think Gen AI has kind of unlocked this because the barrier to trying something is, can you type?
Yeah.
You don't even have to. Can you speak?
Yes.
Right? So that's a wonderful invitation to innovate. It will require things like the first day memo. We have to give people structure.
Mm.
We have to help people know what's important. But the opportunities for innovation, for new ways of doing things, for efficiency, I think we're at the start of something very exciting.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's yeah, it's very exciting what this year holds. So in terms of access to you, is it LinkedIn? Is there a website?
Oh, of course. So people, of course, can go to LinkedIn, Joelle Kaufman, but www.GTM Flow, that's go to market flow, is a great way to get in touch with me. And in fact, I'll create a landing page that is www.gtmflow slash exceptional sales leader. And in it, I'll put out, I have a quick shift guide to,
Hmm.
it's one page that you can use to catch yourself when you're being a tactical hero, dealing with crisis to crisis, and shift to being a strategic leader and to using an approach.
Brilliant.
So you can get the quick shift guide. It will help you out. And if you want to find time to talk with me, that'll be an option for you. And if all you want is the quick shift guide, that's fine too.
Awesome. Very, very nice of you to do that. Thank you, Joelle. And thank you so much for being a great guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. And enjoy the rest of your wonderful Monday afternoon in San
I know. It's
Francisco.
like we're time traveling here. Enjoy your Tuesday.
We are. We are. Good on you. Thanks again. All the best. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com, and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.